Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Today we'll be talking about everything wrong with Raleigh Lilith, also known as Raleigh Link. This video is simply me sharing my opinion as well as any evidence I may have to support it. This video is not made with malicious intent, I'm only sharing my fair share of constructive criticism. Also, keep in mind that English is far from my native language. Please feel free to let me know if I use any words incorrectly. Now, on with the video. First up, this is probably the video that Raleigh has received the most amount of hate for. In a very short summary, this is a video where Raleigh reacts to the TikTok Basic White Butch posted about her belief of the 20% rule being outdated. While I do strongly disagree with Butch here, I believe that Raleigh's summary of this video was unnecessarily rude.
An overweight rider, admittedly overweight, not saying that just to be mean, complaining about how she's upset with people who comment in her comment sections about the 20% rule.
The order in which a person mentions things is important, especially in topics like this. While the intention was to educate, mentioning that Butch is an overweight writer, even if she has admitted it on her own, can seem like Raleigh is trying to use that to her own benefit. This can cause the audience to instantly side with Butch and not pay much attention to Raleigh's evidence mentioned later in her video, even if Butch is incorrect. Sticking to the clinical studies she shows in her videos instead of first mentioning Butch's weight would have been a much better way of educating the audience without as big of a risk of this blowing up in her face, which it did. Anyway, here is Butch's video.
I'm not going to be nasty to you because a lot of people don't realize that there have been studies done that has totally disproven the 20% rule. That was done, I believe, in the late 1800s, early 1900s. Since then, even universities such as the Ohio State University have completely disproven this. While 20% is an okay way to see what gauges as far as safe for a horse, it has been definitely proven that a light, weight appropriate, unbalanced rider essentially does more damage, tissue wise, etc., over time than a slightly heavier rider that can actually move with their horse and ride. Honestly, I hate this 20% rule, and the fact that it's so outdated and people don't do their due diligence of doing the research to check before they post.
Raleigh then talks about her original response on other social medias. I'm not going to share every second of the footage, you can just look that up on your own. However, there are some parts I have comments for. For example, the very beginning of her first response.
Okay, so clearly this is something that is a very sensitive topic for you because I understand that you're an overweight rider and you think that people are trying to body shame you by trying to care about the health and well-being of animals. But trust me, this isn't about you. This is about the animal and this is about the health and safety of the animal.
Again, Raleigh mentions Butch's weight in the very beginning of the video before she talks about anything else. Even though taking weight into consideration is incredibly important, especially with horses, like I said earlier, mentioning this so early on in the video can cause the audience to try and defend Butch as if she were being attacked, even if Raleigh is correct and has many more reliable sources compared to Butch.
And I don't care if I hurt people's feelings by saying the truth because I'm going to say it. This is not about you. Stop turning this into a fat acceptance, fat shaming issue. This is not about you. This is about the health, safety, and well-being of animals.
While I definitely agree with Raleigh, I feel like if she had only talked about this having nothing to do with fat acceptance at this point in the video and not more towards the beginning, it would have allowed the audience to pay more attention to the studies she shares in the video and less attention to her comments about the rider's weight. The next video I'll be talking about is this one, where Raleigh talks about Harlow, an 11-year-old who rides ponies she's unfortunately too big for even though she has gone far into her growth spurt already. Now, please do not get me wrong, I do agree with Raleigh as she has some very good points such as these clips.
You know, I give barrel racers a lot of shit for their horses being very badly mannered and behaved and stressed out, showing physical signs of stress when they're entering arenas to run barrels. And I would be absolutely wrong and hypocritical for not pointing that out when it comes to Harlow. Cloudy is walking around the arena exhibiting the same signs and symptoms of a stressed out barrel racing horse. There's no difference here. This is a horse that's incredibly stressed And I honestly feel bad for him. This is not excited behavior. She literally is taller than this horse, sitting on top of him than what he is. From the tip of her head to the saddle, she is taller than the horse is. And it's not even just Harlow. Everybody there, all the other kids are way too big to be riding these Shetlands. And before anybody comes for me and says, well, they're thin though, they probably weigh within the limit and they're riding well, so they're taking pressure off the horse's back. No, again, like I said, there is a limit to that.
We have to keep in mind that Harlow is not even a teenager yet. On one side, Harlow's parents are completely responsible for monitoring her access to the internet and making sure that Harlow doesn't see Raleigh's videos. The parents also need to accept that there will always be people who share their opinions, both negative or positive, about Harlow as long as they keep posting her on social media. But this doesn't give people the right to talk about a child the way Raleigh talks about Harlow.
A 20% max weight carrying capacity, including tack, for a 400-pound Shetland is 80 pounds, including tack. Harlow is estimated to weigh around 90 pounds. This is not something I'm making up. This is actual statistics found on the internet.
First of all, I think we can all understand why it's incredibly dangerous to talk about a growing child's weight so openly. This industry already has more than enough people struggling with eating disorders, and we definitely do not need to risk adding to that number.
He behaves almost worse than a barrel horse. At least barrel racers can get their horses to stand still when they're done barrel racing. This poor horse can't even stand still. He's so stressed out that he's so antsy he can't even stand. I mean, what even is this?
Now, this was absolutely not necessary. While yes, Raleigh's main goal is to always inform without sugarcoating, it's common sense that you don't have to be this harsh, especially to a child, when you're being honest with them. Sure, it isn't her responsibility to make sure Harlow doesn't see her video. However, if her opinion was truly directed at the parents and not at Harlow,
Again, this is exactly why none of my videos are ever directed at children, because not only would that be insanely cruel and ridiculous to just dunk on a child.
I don't understand what could have possibly made Raleigh feel the need to say this. As an adult, she could have considered the risk of a developing child seeing her video and been a tad bit more careful with her choice of words, especially with a platform as big as hers. At the end of the day, Harlow is a child who seems quite naive even for her age. She can't control what happens in her life or what gets posted. Her parents are in charge of all of that. Unfortunately, parents with the family vlog style channels tend to not monitor their kids as much as they should. Raleigh is a grown adult who should have been able to connect these dots, therefore, I believe she should have shared her comments in a more respectful manner. Raleigh has mentioned in many of her videos that she doesn't care if she offends people or not. However, not putting any effort into being a respectful person will make people less likely to listen to your recommendations, which I feel gets rid of the purpose of her activism channel as a whole. Last but absolutely not least, this is probably the most disappointing video I've ever found from Raleigh to date. It is a bit old, it's just 2 years old, so that's not that bad. So I would honestly love if Raleigh did a second video after researching this topic once again, but from all perspectives. This video is where Raleigh reacts to a video of a carriage horse being attacked by a dog that is mislabeled as a pit bull, and I will get into the mislabeling in just a moment.
Just the other day, I want to say the 3rd of April, there was an extremely violent pit bull attack on a carriage driving horse.
See, we're barely 2.5 minutes into this video and there's already misinformation being shared. However, I won't say Raleigh is at fault for this. A lot of people just in general don't understand what a pit bull is. No, a pit bull is not a blanket term for bully breeds. This is not a pit bull and most likely not even an actual pit bull mix. This isn't either, and this is also not a pit bull. A pit bull, the shortened name for American Pit Bull Terrier, is a dog breed created to be a combination of the gameness of the terrier with the strength and athleticism of the bulldog. This dog is supposed to be a warrior-like working dog. Keyword, working. These are not pets, these are working dogs, bred to have a job and a specific function. Anyway, I'll make a separate video on pit bulls. I promise, that's gonna be fun. Back to Raleigh's video.
I helped out in the euthanization of many pit bulls because they could not pass the behavioral tests to be adopted out We did not deem them safe enough to be adopted out to other families. Do I think pit bulls should be banned? Yes, absolutely.
Now, pit bulls are tough working dogs. Not even well-bred American Pit Bull Terriers will be suitable for most individuals, as most people don't even need a dog like this. It's super rare for ethically produced dogs to end up in shelters, and if they do, their breeders will always track them down and take them back within short notice. This means that the majority, if not all, of the pit bulls in shelters are backyard bred. Obviously, we can't expect the general public to be able to manage a genetic dumpster fire of a highly driven working breed.
Are there good pit bulls out there? Yes, I'm sure. Are there good owners of pit bulls out there? Yes, I'm sure. However, should everyone be able to own a pit bull? No.
Honestly, I don't think there's any breed of dog that everyone should be able to own. The majority of dog owners already don't know how to properly care and provide for their dog. This is due to them not fully understanding the function behind the breed or breeds of their dogs. Any dog will exhibit normal dog behavior, and sure, there's behavior that stays the same with every breed, but there are a lot of behaviors that differ from each breed. For example, pointers will obviously point, it's in their name. Golden retrievers will play fetch and retrieve for hours without getting tired. It's also in their name. Border collies will try to herd certain things around them. If a dog doesn't get physically and or mentally stimulated enough, they will all eventually become reactive, which can then lead to aggression. American Pit Bull Terriers are already genetically prone to dog and animal aggression. Obviously, this behavior, even though it is desired, will get out of control much faster because they're supposed to be significantly more energetic and driven than your average dog, and the average family will fail to meet their needs.
Pit bulls are inherently more aggressive than other dog breeds, and not to mention, they cause 5 times the amount of damage to people and children and other animals when they attack. They are responsible for the overwhelming amount of dog attacks to humans and other animals every single year, more so than any other dog breed, causing twice the amount of fatalities and injuries, and most often they turn on their own owners, children, family members.
At the end of the day, this still is not the dog's fault. This all comes down to irresponsible owners failing to manage their dogs. Obviously, a dog that has been bred for over 100 years to be more aggressive than the average dog will cause more damage than, say, a Pekingese or a Chihuahua. However, a lot of the dogs that are labeled as pit bulls on the news and at shelters are still just unethically bred genetic dumpster fires in a mutt's body. They're not actually pit bull terriers, and it's sad that people will continue mislabeling these dogs. And yes, a dog will turn on its own owner if the owner is failing to provide proper stimulation and just overall basic care for the dog.
I want to mention that this documentary is amazing. There's many other pieces of research and documentaries out there. This is the thing that I started struggling with a few years ago as an animal activist. I once upon a time advocated for pit bulls. I once upon a time said, it's not the dog, it's the person. But how can I stick to that logic after meeting the countless families who relinquish their pit bulls to me and to my colleagues at rescue shelters, saying that they can't handle this dog anymore, that they fear for their children? How can I just sit there and say, when pit bulls make up a 40% of the relinquished dogs in shelters today, how can you sit there and say that all of those owners are bad?
Those countless families are all irresponsible owners who have either realized their errors and are trying to find a better placement for the dog, or they're people who are continuing to blame the dog after they failed to provide for it as an owner, which then caused the poor dog to lash out. Actual pit bulls are tough working dogs. However, the dogs that are mislabeled as pit bulls are still usually high energy working breeds, or a combination of that sort. The families concerned for their children being near their dogs are the families that clearly weren't cut out for that type of dog in the first place and should not have gotten one. Young children and high energy working dogs usually don't mix in your average family anyway. And I may deep dive into that documentary when I have time, and I might include snippets of it in the video I make specifically about pit bulls.
I believe that there is around 190 or something recognized dog breeds, and that one dog breed is responsible for the overwhelming majority of dog attacks.
Hello? American Pit Bull Terriers are not a registered breed with the American Kennel Club. I know they're registered with the UKC, but definitely not the AKC. Not today, maybe someday, but definitely not today. And it definitely was not a registered breed when this video came out 2 years ago.
Are all pit bulls bad? No. But the overwhelming majority should not be around people in domesticated settings.
I mean, I guess I agree to a certain extent, but just because most of the dogs we call pit bulls are just unethically produced dogs that shouldn't exist in the first place, that's not me saying that there's something wrong with the dogs or they're less deserving of living or love or whatever. This is just me saying that there are a lot wrong with the people that produce these dogs.
Do I think it is the responsible thing for shelters to euthanize animals that they deem too aggressive to be with other people? Yes, absolutely. I think that is the public safety and responsible thing to do.
See, I don't fully agree with this. I think that yes, if a dog is assessed and staff fully believe that it will never have a good quality of life, you should just put it out of its misery right then, right there. However, I think a lot of dogs that are unfit for the general public could thrive as working dogs, such as hunting dogs or sporting dogs. You get what I mean. I think that possibly attempting to start a rehabilitation program for some of these dogs where they learn to use their flaws to their advantage as well as their owner's advantage could be a good idea. Do not quote me on that if someone tries that and it fails miserably. Just an idea. I think it would be a good idea. I think it would be worth it. I don't know.
The scariest thing about this video to me is the fact that this dog kept coming back over and over and over again, even after this horse is relentlessly kicking him, and the dog ended up succumbing to its own injuries.
This usually happens in two different situations. The first one is the one in the video, where a genetic dumpster fire of a dog ends up in the hands of an irresponsible owner that doesn't properly attend to the dog, which then causes it to try and act out aggressively. Because the owner also doesn't manage the dog accordingly, the dog ends up being able to cause a tremendous amount of damage to its surroundings. The second situation I was talking about is that it's a type of dog that is bred to be aggressive within a working reason, such as American Pit Bull Terriers, obviously, also the Belgian Malinois, Congals, or even the Fila Brasileiro doing what it was originally bred to do.
I've always had dogs my whole life. I have always rescued dogs. I have had hunting dogs. I have helped in the rehabilitation and training of abused and aggressive dogs. Pit bulls are by far the most aggressive dog breed I have ever worked with.
Again, the majority of the dogs labeled as pit bulls are not actually pit bulls. A lot of genetic dumpster fires are mentally messed up from the time they are born. If they end up with an irresponsible owner, which, let's be honest, they usually do, this causes their psychological state to get even worse. Add pent up energy on top of this, and you basically end up with a nuke. In the case of actual ethically produced American Pit Bull Terriers, they're working dogs trying to do what they've been bred to do. However, ethically produced pit bulls will not end up in the hands of an irresponsible owner, so this would not happen to begin with, and if they somehow slip through the cracks, the dog will be returned to the breeder.
I'm not advocating for all of these animals to be euthanized or put down, but I think there should legitimately be sanctuaries put in place for pit bulls instead of trying to continue to adopt them out to families where children and other animals' lives are put at risk.
If we're going to talk about the end goal, I truly believe it would be best if we found an elaborate way to get all intact animals out of the hands of irresponsible owners, adopt out the ones that we are able to, and leave all breeding of all animals that are domesticated up to ethical breeders. All domesticated animals serve a function, and in order for them to continue being functional in that way, we need to let breeders continue producing them up to breed standards. Alrighty, I think this is a pretty good point to end this video on. It's already pretty long. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. Please let me know your thoughts in the comments and have a joyful day. Bye!